There comes a moment when a person stops drifting through life and starts shaping it. That moment is when knowledge ceases to be something you hear and starts to become something you live. Being dangerously smart isn't about arrogance. It's about becoming so sharp in mind and spirit that nothing, no one, and no circumstance can shake your course. Here's how you build that level of power. Every breakthrough begins with a refusal to remain in the dark. The world offers an endless supply of half truths, shallow opinions, and comfortable lies, and most people are content to live within those walls. But the moment you decide that ignorance is no longer acceptable, everything changes. You stop being a passive receiver of life and become an active seeker of it. This decision doesn't happen by accident. It's a conscious turning point where you recognize that your future is being shaped by what you know and what you choose to ignore. The truth may be inconvenient, uncomfortable, or even painful, but it will always set the foundation for real power. Once that decision is made, your hunger for learning becomes relentless. You begin to feed your mind daily, carefully selecting what you consume. Instead of letting your attention be hijacked by meaningless chatter and distractions, you deliberately choose material that forces your thinking to expand. A single page of wisdom, studied deeply and applied with discipline, can do more for your growth than hours of idle entertainment. The dangerously smart are those who treat their mind like a high-performance machine, fueling it with only the best ideas, concepts, and strategies that push them further. With this hunger comes a shift in the questions you ask yourself and the world around you. The ordinary mind seeks sympathy or blame, asking, why is this happening to me? But the sharp mind asks, how can this work for me? Or, what is the hidden opportunity here? Better questions lead to better answers, and better answers lead to better actions. The dangerously smart know that the quality of their thinking shapes the quality of their life, so they never settle for shallow inquiries. They dig until they uncover the deeper insight. Part of that search for deeper insight involves seeking mentors rather than cheerleaders. It's easy to surround yourself with people who will always agree with you, but that comfort is dangerous. Growth requires challenge, and challenge often comes from those who see more potential in you than you see in yourself. A real mentor will push you past your excuses, expose your blind spots, and hold you to a higher standard than you hold yourself. This can feel uncomfortable in the moment, but the discomfort is a sign that you are stretching into a stronger version of yourself. As your knowledge and awareness grow, so must your ability to turn information into action. Far too many people confuse knowing with doing, but in reality, unused knowledge is just mental clutter. The dangerously smart take what they learn, apply quickly, and then refine it through real world feedback. They understand that the value of an idea, the mind is like fertile soil, and whatever you plant in it will grow. If you choose to feed it with gossip, trivialities, and endless distractions, you will harvest shallow thinking and fleeting satisfaction. But if you deliberately feed it with ideas that challenge you, perspectives that expand your vision, and knowledge that demands you to think in new ways, you begin to cultivate a mental environment where growth becomes inevitable. A single well-chosen book, studied with intention and acted upon, can reshape not only your understanding of the world, but also the way you operate within it. This is why the dangerously smart are ruthless about what they allow into their mind. They know that every thought is either an asset or a liability. When you commit to a higher standard of mental input, something shifts inside you. You begin to feel less drawn to the noise of the world because you have tasted the depth of silence and reflection. Instead of scrolling aimlessly or drowning in idle chatter, you find yourself seeking out material that stretches your boundaries. You might read works that challenge your beliefs, listen to conversations that introduce you to unfamiliar viewpoints, or study strategies that have stood the test of time. This is not passive learning, it's active engagement with knowledge that shapes action. The dangerously smart know that learning without doing is the same as never having learned at all. The process is not just about accumulation. It's about transformation. Each quality idea you expose yourself to becomes a seed that, when acted upon, grows into new habits, decisions, and results. Over time, your thinking patterns change. You find yourself approaching problems differently, recognizing opportunities more quickly, and anticipating challenges before they appear. This is not because the world has changed, but because your lens through which you see it has sharpened. It's the mental equivalent of upgrading from a dimly lit room to one flooded with light. You simply see more. One of the most powerful aspects of this transformation is the compounding effect disciplined learning. Just as saving a small amount of money consistently builds wealth over time, feeding your mind daily with high value knowledge builds intellectual wealth that multiplies in ways you can't predict. One book leads you to another. One idea sparks a breakthrough in a different area of life. One conversation opens the door to an entirely new set of possibilities. This kind of growth is not linear, it's exponential. And the dangerously smart leverage this by staying consistent long after others lose interest. But there is also a protective element in this practice. The more you feed your mind with quality, the questions you ask yourself are the steering wheel of your mind. When something goes wrong, most people instinctively slip into victimhood, asking, "Why me?" This type of question locks your mind into helplessness, trapping you in a loop where you search for blame rather than solutions. But when you shift to questions like, "How can I turn this into an advantage?" you immediately open the door to possibility. The focus moves from what's wrong to what's possible, and then your mind begins scanning for options, resources, and angles that you couldn't see before. This single shift in thinking is often the difference between staying stuck and moving forward. When you ask empowering questions, you give your mind a task that energizes it rather than drains it. Instead of dwelling on the problem, you start exploring ways to use it to your benefit. For example, a financial setback can prompt questions about creating new income streams or building better systems for managing resources. A personal challenge can spark questions about resilience, skills, or inner strength that can be developed. Every challenge becomes a disguised lesson, and every obstacle turns into raw material for growth. The quality of your life begins to mirror the quality of your questions because your focus determines your actions, and your actions create your results. This mindset does not mean ignoring reality or pretending that difficulties don't exist. It means facing them with a higher level of thinking. When you habitually ask better questions, you train your brain to look beyond the surface. Instead of stopping at the first, most obvious answer, you dig deeper to find underlying causes, hidden opportunities, and creative solutions. This not only improves your ability to problem, but also strengthens your adaptability. Life stops feeling like something that happens to you and starts feeling like something you actively shape. Over time, this approach builds an inner confidence that others can feel. You stop being rattled by sudden changes or unexpected setbacks because you trust your ability to navigate them. People who ask empowering questions carry a different kind of energy. They're less reactive, more composed, and often 2 steps ahead of everyone else. They see patterns others miss and act on opportunities others overlook. In a world where most people freeze at the first sign of trouble, this habit makes you stand out. Ultimately, asking better questions is a form of mental leverage. It multiplies the power of your intelligence by directing it toward constructive ends. Instead of wasting time replaying what went wrong, you invest your mental energy into discovering what can go right and how to make it happen. This habit transforms setbacks into stepping stone and turns everyday challenges into training grounds for greater success. When you master the art of asking powerful questions, you stop being at the mercy of life's events and start becoming the architect of your own future. Knowledge by itself is inert until it is acted upon. You can fill your mind with books, seminars, and inspiring quotes, but if none of it is put into practice, I would describe it becomes nothing more than mental clutter taking up valuable space. Real intelligence is measured not by how much you know, but by how effectively you can use what you know to shape results. The dangerously smart understand that speed matters. They do not wait for perfect conditions or flawless understanding before they act. They take what they have learned, test it in the real world, and learn more in a week of action than others do months of passive study. The moment you apply knowledge, it changes form. What was once theory now becomes experience, and experience is a far more valuable teacher. Through action, you discover the nuances that no book or lecture could fully explain. You see what works, what fails, and what needs adjusting. This process not only deepens your understanding, but also builds confidence in your ability to handle challenges. While others are trapped in analysis, endlessly preparing, you are already refining your approach through direct engagement. Application also reveals gaps in your knowledge that you would never notice otherwise. You might think you fully understand a concept until you try to use it under pressure. The obstacles, mistakes, and unexpected variables you face in the field become the real test of whether you have mastered the lesson. The dangerously smart embrace these moments, not as signs of failure, but as opportunities to sharpen their skills. Every adjustment made in response to real-world feedback strengthens the connection between knowledge and execution. The act of refining is what turns good ideas into powerful tools. After each attempt, you analyze the outcome with honesty, stripping away ego and excuses. You ask what could have been done better, where time or energy was wasted, and how the process can be streamlined for greater impact. This constant cycle of action, review, and improvement creates momentum. Over time, small refinements compound into massive advantages, and you find yourself performing at a level far beyond those who never moved past the learning phase. Another benefit of swift application is the building of adaptability. The world changes quickly, and knowledge that is not used can become outdated before it ever benefits you. By acting on what you learn immediately, you not only get ahead of the curve, but also train yourself to adapt to changing circumstances. You become comfortable with uncertainty because you've built the habit of taking imperfect action and adjusting along the way. This agility is a defining trait of the dangerously smart. It allows them to turn information into results faster than anyone else. Ultimately, the transformation comes when applying knowledge, your default mode of operation. You stop hoarding ideas for some undefined right time and start using them in the present moment. You see every lesson, insight, and piece of advice as raw material, not for storing, but for shaping into something tangible. Over time, how this habit separates you from those who are merely informed and places you among those who are effective. In a world full of people who know but never do, the ones who act, refine, and evolve are the ones who become truly formidable. A scattered mind is like a leaking container. No matter how much you try to fill it, most of what you pour in escapes before it can be used. When your attention is pulled in too many directions, you cannot give any one task the depth of focus it deserves. This constant switching between thoughts, tasks, and distractions drains your mental energy faster than you realize. I will describe, without a deliberate effort to protect your focus, you end up working harder but achieving less, caught in a cycle of business that produces little of real value. The dangerously smart understand that clarity is a force multiplier, and they protect it fiercely. Time, attention, and energy are the most valuable currencies you possess, and unlike money, they cannot be replenished once they are spent. A distraction, every unnecessary conversation, and every aimless scroll on a screen is a withdrawal from an account with a very real limit. If you treat these resources carelessly, you will find yourself depleted and unable to invest them where they matter most. Guarding them means being willing to say no, not out of rudeness, but out of respect for your own priorities and future. Protecting focus requires setting clear boundaries, both with yourself and with others. This means creating environments where you can work without interruption, scheduling time blocks for deep work, and training yourself to resist the temptation of constant stimulation. It also means being intentional about what you let to your mental space, conversations, media, and even the thoughts you dwell on. The mind cannot thrive in chaos. It needs order to operate at its peak. When you remove unnecessary noise, you give your thoughts the space to grow into strategies and solutions. Another important aspect is learning to channel your energy into fewer, higher impact actions. Spreading yourself thin across too many projects or commitments dilutes your effectiveness. The dangerously smart know how to prioritize, focusing their best hours and mental clarity on the tasks that will create the greatest results. This doesn't mean ignoring of everything else. It means sequencing your efforts so that the most important work gets the best of you, not the leftovers of your time and energy. When you train yourself to work with deep, undistracted focus, you begin to notice a shift in both the quality and speed of your progress. Tasks that once took hours can be completed in a fraction of the time, and the results are sharper, more precise, and more impactful. Your decision making improved as your mind because not clouded by a dozen competing inputs. You start to operate with a calm intensity, fully engaged in what's in front of you without being pulled into the noise of everything else. In the end, guarding your time, attention, and energy is not about living a rigid or joyless life. It's about living a deliberate one. It's about understanding that these resources are the foundation of every success you will ever build. When you treat them as treasure, you invest them wisely, spend them with intention, and refuse to waste them on things that do not serve your vision. This discipline is what separates those who drift aimlessly from those who move with purpose, building something of real value that lasts. Most people go through life taking words at face value, assuming that what someone says is always an accurate reflection of their thoughts or intentions. But the truth is, words can be misleading, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. If you really want to understand people, you must watch what they do more than what they say. Actions reveal patterns, priorities, and beliefs that words often try to conceal. A person's choices, habits, and behavior under pressure speak with far more honesty than any promise or declaration. When you begin observing closely, you start to notice the subtle details others miss. A pause before answering, a shift in tone, or a change in body language can carry meaning that words alone cannot capture. You learn to listen not just to the sound of a conversation, but to the spaces between the words, the hesitations, the omissions, the things deliberately left unsaid. Sometimes silence reveals more truth than speech, and the dangerously smart are attuned to this silent language. Patterns are another form of truth that few people pay attention to. One event in isolation might seem random, but when similar events happen repeatedly, they begin to tell a story. Whether it's in business, relationships, or human behavior, patterns are the fingerprints of intention. By training yourself to see beyond isolated incidents and connect the dots, you gain the ability to predict outcomes, anticipate moves, and prepare yourself for what's coming before others even realize it's approaching. This kind of observation requires patience and discipline. The urge to jump to conclusions is strong, but conclusions formed too quickly often miss the deeper reality. Observation is about gathering enough evidence over enough time to see the truth with clarity. The dangerously smart learn to withhold judgment until they've seen enough to recognize whether someone's actions align with their words. In doing so, they avoid being deceived by charm, appearances, or well-crafted stories. The world hides its most valuable information in plain sight, visible to anyone who cares to look closely. Trends in markets, shifts in culture, changes in relationships, all of these leave clues that are often ignored because they seem too ordinary to matter. But in those ordinary details are the keys to extraordinary understanding. The ones who notice are the ones who adapt first, take advantage of opportunities sooner, and avoid mistakes that trap everyone else. Over time, this level of observation becomes second nature. You no longer just hear what is spoken, you hear the intention behind it. You no longer just see actions, you see the patterns they belong to. You no longer just watch the world happen. You read it like a map, navigating it with a level of awareness that feels almost like foresight. This is one of the quiet powers of being dangerously smart. You can see what others miss, and in seeing it, you are prepared to act while they are still trying to understand what happened. The ability to control your emotions is one of the most powerful skills you can develop because it places you in command of yourself, no matter what the outside world throws at you. When emotions take the driver's seat, logic and clarity are pushed aside, and your decisions become reactive rather than deliberate. Anger can make you act before thinking. Fear can freeze you into inaction, and ego can push you into battles that are not worth fighting. But when you remain calm under pressure, you keep access to your full intelligence, allowing you to make decisions that others overlook in the heat of the moment. Anger, in particular, is a master of disguise. It often convinces you that you are acting with strength, when in reality you are acting from weakness, letting an outside force dictate your behavior. In moments of anger, your focus narrows to the immediate problem or insult, and you lose sight of the bigger picture. The dangerously smart resist this trap by learning to pause, breathe, and give themselves the space to think before acting. That pause is not a sign of passivity. It is the strategic gap where impulsive mistakes are avoided and smarter moves are born. Fear works differently but is equally limiting. It whispers about everything that could go wrong until you are paralyzed into doing nothing at all. Opportunities pass by, risks go untested, and life becomes smaller because fear has drawn invisible boundaries around it. The dangerously smart learn to acknowledge fear without obeying it. They use it as a signal to prepare, to gather information, and to move forward with calculated steps rather than being trapped by hesitation. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Ego is perhaps the most subtle and dangerous of all. It thrives on the need to be right, to win every argument, and to appear strong in the eyes of others. But ego often blinds you to better options, damages relationships, and keeps you fighting battles that drain resources without giving anything back. The dangerously smart see ego for what it is, false sense of strength that can lead to costly decisions. They choose humility when it serves their long-term vision, even if it means appearing to lose in the short power, because they know real power is in the resultless, not in the appearance of control. Training emotional control is not about suppressing what you feel. It's about directing those emotions so they serve you rather than sabotage you. This comes from self-awareness, recognizing the early signs of anger, fear, or ego before they take over. It also comes from preparation, because the more you know your values and long-term goals, the easier it becomes to choose responses that align with them instead of reacting impulsively. Over time, this habit builds a kind of inner armor that allows you to move through challenges without being thrown off course by emotional storms. When you can stay calm in the face of provocation, confident in the midst of uncertainty, and humble when victory tempts you to become arrogant, you have reached a level of mental control that very few ever achieve. This control gives you an edge that no amount of raw intelligence or knowledge can match. While others are making rash moves, freezing in fear, or wasting energy on pride, you are quietly and steadily advancing toward your goals. This is the silent, commanding power of mastering your emotions. It makes you unpredictable, unshakable, and nearly impossible to outthink. Thinking ahead is not simply a matter of imagining what might happen tomorrow. It is the deliberate practice of looking far enough down the road to see the consequences of your actions before they unfold. Every choice you make sets off a chain reaction, whether you notice it or not. Most people only see the first link in that chain. They make decisions based on immediate benefits or short-term relief. The dangerously smart look beyond that, asking where each path leads, what it costs, and what it creates. This ability to anticipate outcomes transforms decision making from guesswork into strategy. When you train yourself to think several moves ahead, you begin to approach life the way a master chess player approaches the board. You stop reacting to each move in isolation and making choices that serve a larger plan. This means resisting the temptation of easy wins that create long-term setbacks, and it means sometimes accepting small losses now to set up greater victories later. The dangerously smart understand that every move has an opportunity cost, and they measure that cost before committing. This habit requires patience and discipline, because thinking ahead often means delaying gratification. You may see an immediate opportunity to take advantage of a situation, but your foresight warns you of the complications it could bring. Passing on the quick gain in favor of a better position later demands restraint. And it's this restraint that separates strategikers from impulsive ones. While others celebrate early wins that soon turn into problems, You are quietly setting the stage for results that last. Anticipation also means preparing for multiple scenarios, not just the one you hope will happen. You consider what could go wrong, what obstacles might appear, and how you would respond if things don't unfold as expected. This doesn't come from a place of fear, but from a place of readiness. You create backup plans, contingencies, and exit strategies so that when surprises come, and they always do, you can adapt without losing momentum. The dangerously smart are rarely caught off guard because they have already thought through the possibilities. Another advantage of thinking three moves ahead, ability to see the ripple effects of your choices on other people. You understand that a decision made today may alter relationships, I will influence perceptions, and open or close doors in the future. Considering these effects helps you avoid actions that might damage your reputation or limit your opportunities later. It also allows you to make choices that build trust, strengthen alliances, and position you for greater influence over time. With enough practice, this way of thinking becomes second nature. You no longer feel rushed or pressured into hasty decisions because you are always working from a wider perspective. You know where you are going, you understand the steps needed to get there, and you can see the traps that might derail you. In a world where most people live move to move, you live strategy to strategy, and that alone gives you a decisive advantage. And this is why the dangerously smart are so difficult to outmaneuver. They have already played out the game in their mind long before others have even thought about their next move. The moment you believe you have reached the top is the moment you begin to slide backward. Success has a way of lulling people into comfort, convincing them that the hard work is over and the journey is complete. But in reality, every peak is only a resting place before the next climb. The dangerously smart understand that mastery is not a final destination. It is a continual process of sharpening, adjusting, and improving. They refuse to let past victories become a prison that keeps them from chasing future growth. Complacency is a subtle enemy because it feels like peace, but it is actually the beginning of stagnation. When you stop pushing yourself to learn, adapt, delve, the world around you keeps moving, and before long, you are no longer ahead. You are falling behind. The dangerously smart avoid this trap by treating every achievement not as a conclusion, but as a foundation for the next breakthrough. They ask themselves, what can I do better? Where can I grow from here? This mindset keeps them in motion, always seeking a higher standard. Continuous refinement requires humility because it means admitting that no matter how skilled or knowledgeable you are, there is always more to learn. This humility opens the door to feedback, new perspectives, and fresh challenges that keep your mind sharp. Instead of protecting their ego by pretending to know it all, the dangerously smart protect their future by remaining teachable. They seek out books, mentors, experiences, and even failures that will stretch a capacity and expand their vision. There is also a deep satisfaction that comes from the pursuit of mastery itself. The process of improving, of refining your craft, deepening your understanding, and perfecting your approach becomes a source of motivation that never runs dry. The dangerously smart are not driven solely by the rewards of success, but by the joy of becoming better than they were yesterday. This inner drive ensures their progress continues regardless of external circumstances. The sharper your mind becomes, the greater your reach and influence. Each new skill mastered, each lesson absorbed, and each insight gained expands the range of opportunities available to you. This creates a compounding effect. Your capabilities grow, which leads to bigger challenges, which in turn force you to grow even more. Over time, this upward cycle creates a level of expertise and resilience that others find impossible to match. Ultimately, staying hungry for growth is not about never feeling satisfied. It is about refusing to let satisfaction turn into stillness. You can appreciate how far you've come while still keeping your eyes on the horizon. The dangerously smart know that the game is never truly over, and the best way to honor their achievements is to keep building upon them. This relentless pursuit ensures that they remain relevant, adaptable, and powerful no matter how much the world changes. When you walk this path, you will become more than just intelligent, you will become formidable. Your mind will be a fortress, your decisions a weapon, and your presence a force to be reckoned with. That is what it means to be dangerously smart.